Welcome to Storytime with Coach B. Last week we talked about two teams that made tournament runs to the regionals. However, there's nothing more exciting or special as a run to the state tournament, the Final Four. I think Abram Capel of the Buckeye Central girls can attest to that, as well as coaches such as Kevin Logston of Clearfork, Rob Sheldon of Winford, Greg Collins, who did it at Lex and Senior High, Joe Pratz of Mansfield Senior, Steve Moore at Buckeye Central, and my good friend, most recently, Steve Gray of the Norwalk Truckers. In 1994, our team went 21-3, winning the Division II district, defeating Huron 55-38 and Edison 69-49 to advance to the regionals, which were held at the University of Toledo. In that regional semifinal, we matched up with Delta, and we got crushed, 82-56. We shot 29% in that game, going 3 of 33 from three-point range for 13%. And we got manhandled by two brothers, Julian and Ignacio Delgado. We lost 3 seniors from that squad in Mark Reinhart, Jeremy Hancock, and Scott Hellinger, but we also returned juniors Brian Maloney and Ben Shoemaker, who were our 2 leading scorers, along with 2 other juniors, Mike Murray and Jason Russell. So as we prepared for the 1994-95 season, we were excited about the possibilities as Maloney and Shoemaker, as I mentioned, our 2 leading scorers, were coming back. So that following season, though, we added a 6'4" sophomore named Tony Dorsey to our lineup, along with junior Scott Boyce, Scott Osler, and a senior, Mac Wentz. Osler had moved in from Oregon and proved to be a key component to this team's success. So we started the 1994-95 season with a 2-point win over Clearfork, and then lost to 2 at Shelby in overtime. We then won 5 in a row until we ran into our nemesis, Winford, and we lost 60-57 in overtime. In the midst of that 5-game winning streak, though, was a special moment in my life and in my wife's life, as our second son, Blake, was born on December the 19th, 2004 during that year. We proceeded on a 9-game winning streak, and we approached the last week of the season. We had a chance to clinch the North Central Conference title. So on a Friday night, we defeated Crestline 50-47. Then we had to travel to Colonel Crawford on a Tuesday to make up a game due to snow earlier in the year. The Eagles knocked us off by 3, so we had to go to Winford on Friday to win the NCC. Winford beat us 59-52. So then, in less than a week's time, we had gone from a chance to winning the conference to actually losing it. The sting of those 2 losses was something that our coaching staff did not know if we could recover from. Fortunately, we had little time to think about it as we played Madison in our final home game of the season that year. After playing poorly in our last 3 games we played, we really played well against the Rams, winning 66-59, with Brian Maloney scoring 25 points and eclipsing the 1,000-point mark for his career. So our tournament trail began with a sectional final matchup, again with Winford. We had taken a bye, and Winford had defeated Upper Sandusky in the sectional semifinal. In that sectional final game, we played one of the best games of the season and defeated the Royals 76-57. So the old adage of it being difficult to beat a team 3 times in a season, true to be true, fortunately for us. An interesting story concerning this game was I came from a family of 3 brothers and 4 sisters. My parents came to a lot of our games, and I had a sister, Kathy, who followed us throughout the season. Throughout the season, she would send letters of encouragement to me, to our team, but she was also very superstitious. During a week prior to one of our big games during the season, she said she had found a penny heads up on the ground, and this was usually a sign of good luck. So the week prior to our game versus Winford, she sent an envelope with several pennies that she had found and told me to give them to our players. I mentioned this to our team, and we gave them the pennies. As the game started against Winford, the officials stopped the game because they said there were coins being thrown onto the floor. However, what really happened was that several players had actually tried to put the pennies in the laces of their shoes, and they had come out as we started playing the game. Our district games were played at Ashland University, which at that time had a capacity of over 3,300 people. We matched up with Margaret in the semifinal, winning 73-48, while on the opposite side of the bracket, Clear Fork knocked off New London. This set up a rematch of both teams' opening game, a game in which we had won 66-64 back on December the 2nd. Clear Fork entered the game with a record of 19-3, and we entered with a record of 18-4. A sports writer named Doug Shepard wrote following this game, "Let's start with a multiple choice question. The Clear Fork Ontario District 3 District Championship game at Ashland Friday was A, a game that will be remembered for years to come, B, a game where you hate to see one team lose, C, a game that showed the character of both teams, D, a game that lived up to all expectations, or E, all of the above. Though E is probably the best answer, you're probably right no matter which one you would choose." And I think that described this game. We led 31-24 at the half and also led 42-35 at the end of the third quarter. However, Clear Fork made a run in the fourth quarter and took a 57-54 lead with 17 seconds to play. Fortunately, Ben Shoemaker, probably the best shooter I've ever coached, knocked down a three with 7 seconds to tie the game and send it to overtime. The first overtime ended in a 63-63 tie. However, in the second overtime, we went 11 of 14 from the free throw line to win 74-67. So in the regional semifinal, we matched up with Coldwater, who went 19-4 and had the Division III Northwest District Player of the Year and a young man named Mitch Layfeld. We knocked off the Cavaliers 62-49 as Ben Shoemaker had 30 points, going 8 of 17 from the three-point line. This set up a rematch with Delta, who had crushed us the year before. We came out on fire as Brian Maloney scored 18 of his 22 points in the first quarter as we jumped out to a 32-23 lead at the end of that quarter. Ben continued his hot shooting as he scored a game-high 27 points, making 7 threes as we pulled away in the fourth quarter to an 86-68 win. We had done it. We had made it to the state Final Four and would match up with Orrville, who was 22-3. The Red Riders, under the direction of legendary Hall of Fame coach Steve Smith, were an extremely athletic team led by a trio of players, Ronald Ray, Marcel Denson, and Clenard Irby. I remember preparing for Orrville. I had been to the state tournament for many years, and there was always a game where you would ask yourself the question, how did that team get there? I told my coaching staff if we played poorly and Orrville played well, we would be the team that everyone would be asking, how did that team get there? Our game was at 9 p.m. on a Thursday night at St. John Arena. In preparation for the game, we had told our players we would go down on Thursday afternoon, and then after we won, we would come home, sleep in on Friday, practice Friday afternoon, and then go back for the championship game on Saturday. So we played the game in front of a sold-out St. John's Arena, 13,276 fans. We played great, trailing 27-26 at the half, and then only trailed by 2 points going into the fourth quarter. Ben Shoemaker, who had been held scoreless during this game, hit a three with just under 2 minutes to give us a 51-47 lead. However, Orrville fought back to take a 53-51 lead with 37 seconds, but Brian Maloney answered with a 15-foot jumper, and we held on to take the game to overtime. In the overtime, Orrville scored on 9 of its 10 possessions, and we lost 68-65. So going back to the story of our plan to win and come home, at that time, the state tournament, the OHSAA provided rooms for you in Columbus, and you could choose to use them or not. So since we lost, we decided to stay and try to have our team enjoy the weekend. But a couple neat things happened. First, there were no cell phones at that time. So once we decided to stay, none of our players had brought any extra clothes. So they all had to contact their parents to get their parents to bring clothes down them in the middle of the night so that they had stuff they could wear for the weekend. Secondly, our locker room was really emotional after the game. Once we got to the hotel, Brian Maloney, our All-Ohio player, who had scored 32 points and had an outstanding game, was still crying. I remember I pulled Brian into my room and I told him that he needed to just let this go. as he had played one of the best games an individual player had ever played in the state tournament. He simply looked at me with his fingers this close together and said, "Coach, we were this close." He turned and walked out of my room. As I tried to go to sleep that night, I just kept thinking of that phrase, "Coach, we were this close." Over the next 2 days, as we went to some of the games, and on Saturday we went to the Division III championship game, Orrville won in a blowout, and as I sat there, I kept remembering, we were this close. That Orrville team came back to the state tournament the following year to win again. However, this time moving up a division and winning in Division II. Probably one of the few teams that have ever won back-to-back state championships moving up a division. So there's my final story for this season. I would like to thank Brian, Jory, Travis, Hayden, and the entire OH crew for giving me an opportunity to continue to be part of basketball here in North Central Ohio.